Hello everybody, this is Moose101, and in this week's episode on deck building, I wanted to quickly run through the process I usually use when I create a deck. This is by no means a comprehensive procedure, but I think it's probably generic enough that if you were new to building a deck or were just looking to make a new deck, you could probably use it, and it would be enough to help you get up and running. So to start off, the first thing that I do, and what I think you should do if you're trying to make a deck, is to find a starting point. And I know that's very vague, but it needs to be to include everything that can be the inspiration for a deck. Like in some cases, a certain engine or synergy between engines will be what leads you to want to build a deck. So, for instance, maybe you really just like the consistency of Necroz and the ability the deck has to sort of toolbox gets what it needs to, and the power plays available to it. So maybe that's the reason you want to build a Necroz deck. Or maybe you want to build like a Shaddoll and Inzektor hybrid because Shaddoll Fusion can like help you foolish some of your Inzektors into the graveyard if you want to control extract monsters, that kind of stuff. So typically, when you see hybrid decks that where like two archetypes are played together, it's because they shared some sort of synergy between the engines like that, and that's often where those decks spawn from. So, but that's not the only way that you can be inspired to make a deck. Another way where you will, another way that you can be inspired to make a deck is through a certain player combo that will inspire you. So, like when I built my Zero Heroes, it was the play involving Mask changing Absolute Zero into Acid, which was a complete board wipe during either player's turn, which was really powerful. And I liked that combo so much that I wanted to build a deck around it, and that's what led me to create Zero Heroes. And when I decided to make Raccoons, a large part of that was because of the crazy lockdown potential that your first turn Aturia Beast and Ronan Sandayu combos had available. So those kind of plays can lead you to want to make a deck or have a new deck idea. And oftentimes when you see those like really off the wall decks, the ones that don't really based on any kind of archetype and they're seemingly random, but they have very good synergy. Things like Macro Rabbit, which are a really good example of that. Excuse me. Ooh, okay. Macro Rabbit's a really good example of that, and it's a deck that was just based on a certain synergy or combo, which was of course using Rabbit to get to your vanilla dinosaurs and make the evils or Xyz monsters. So those are kind of a few different ways in which you can be inspired to make a deck or have a deck idea and that kind of stuff. Those aren't the only ways, but those are the two that I mostly kind of see running around. So once you have a starting point, you need to flesh out your deck, and how you do that is different depending on how you started and also what your deck is. If you have an engine, you want to try to find ways to leverage that engine into results. If you have a play, you need to find ways to make that play more consistent. So this step is what will drive a lot of like the smaller variations of things that are otherwise considered to be the same deck. So like the Heretic monsters, I would say constitute an engine with your basic plays involving, like Tefnuit and Sue and your searching spell and stuff like that. I say they constitute an engine, but you'll see Heretic variants that change exactly what works with the engine or what the engine is trying to accomplish. So like my first build of the deck aimed to use the Light Ray monsters because I liked the ridiculous OTK potential it had, and I thought that was fun, but I later on moved to a build that included the Burning Abyss monsters because I realized that it allowed me to make the Chaos monsters like Black Luster Soldier and also just improve consistency. So those are the kind of changes that will lead to variations, but these aren't the only variations of the deck, obviously. Heretics also have the Ultimaya Heretics, which are focused on using Ultimaya Tzolk'in, and it's a very control-oriented deck that still has the explosive plays available to it. Or you can play the Dark Matter Heretics, which are the really far end of like explosiveness on them. So this is where you'll see a lot of the more like innovative picks being used within top-tier decks, because a deck will change how it plays slightly, even with just a few different cards being changed. If you've seen Doomed Cosmos, which are the Cosmos focused on offering to the Dooms and like MSTs blow up your own like Cosmo Town, stuff like that, that is a variation of Cosmos that's only spurred by maybe 5 or 6 different cards in the main deck, but it ends up changing the way it plays pretty substantially. So that's kind of the whole fleshing out process. Sadly, there isn't all that much I can really give in terms of advice for how to do this well. But I'd say really an important part of being good at this is just background knowledge. Being aware of more cards means that you have more options at your disposal when you're deck building. Not every card ever printed is good, but most cards have potential even if it isn't possible to fully realize it when the card is initially released. Play around with rogue strategies, read through the text of the commons you pull, and spend time looking through card databases. You can become a good player by noticing what's becoming popular, but to become a great player, you have to be able to set the trends yourself. Just try your best to remember cards that you've seen that might have potential, like Reinforced Truth, Offerings of the Snake Deity, Lair Wire, Super Solar Nutrient, and Transmodify are all examples of cards that I've remembered, and they stay within my personal radar because they seem like they have a lot of potential and are things I want to include in decks. So at this point, I usually begin adding staples to fill out the rest of the deck. I actually made a video about this like last week, so if you want to see more depth about this, then I'll include a link down in the description so you can go take a look at that. And of course, the last step of building your deck is testing, and definitely is for me at least. You play test matches both online and at locals. In my case, if you can do that, I'd recommend it. Try playing different environments because your deck changes based on where it plays, how it plays against meta decks versus more casual decks. It's all different stuff. Taking test hands, trying different tech choices, seeing what you like and don't like making those choices important for improving your deck. I know a lot of players also really like the idea of open hand testing, where you and a friend both play and are aware of what's in your opponent's hands, so that you can actually help each other learn to play a deck. That's something that's available to you. I don't really do that much, but it is something that I've heard a lot of really good players say is helpful, so I want to put that out there. But the other thing you should be doing at this time, if you haven't already, you need to be trimming your deck down to right around 40 cards. And I'm not saying that every deck has to be exactly 40, but the more cards your deck has, the less consistent it's going to be, so getting it down to right around 40 is good. The case where I'd say you should go over 40 is if maybe it's just to change ratios. Like if you have 3 slots left in your deck and 2 cards you want to put in there, those 3 slots combined, and you don't like either 2-1 ratios because you don't see the 1-1 enough, then just run 2 and 2 and go to a 41 card deck. That might be a good call in that situation if there's nothing else you want to cut out. But that's it for this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, if there's something you want me to cover in a future video, please let me know in a comment down below. This might be the last episode of this segment for a little while, just because I'm not too sure what to discuss next, and I don't want to make filler episodes, but I guess we'll see next week. So, until then, thanks for watching, and see ya!